That was really good, but maybe one of these days we'll have them simultaneously.
For 3 decades, Johnny Carson ruled late-night television. As the host of The Tonight Show from 1962 to 1992, he became America's favorite late-night companion. Millions of people ended their day listening to his calm voice, clever jokes, and friendly conversations with Hollywood stars. But while the audience saw charm, laughter, and glamour, Carson saw something else: the truth behind the smiles. When the cameras stopped rolling, he often witnessed behavior that shocked him. He saw arrogance, cruelty, and vanity hidden under layers of fame. Some of the biggest names in old Hollywood, from Oscar-winning actresses to music legends, showed sides of themselves that few outsiders ever knew. Carson was polite on screen, but off-screen. He remembered those moments for the rest of his life. Behind the stage curtain of laughter, he saw how fame could twist even the most admired stars. His time in Hollywood wasn't just about jokes and interviews. It was an education in human behavior. The same stars who were adored by millions often treated ordinary people as if they didn't matter. And for Johnny Carson, who had worked hard all his life to reach success, that kind of arrogance was something he could never forgive. Johnny Carson's story began far from the lights of Hollywood. Born in Iowa and raised in Nebraska during the Great Depression, life was never easy for him. At the age of 12, he discovered a small book about magic that would change his world. He saved a little money and bought a mail-order magic kit. Soon, he was practicing every day, performing tricks for friends and family. His mother made him a cape, and by 14, he was performing magic shows as the Great Carson at local fairs and picnics for a few dollars per show. Those early performances taught him timing, confidence, and how to make people laugh, skills that would later define his television career. After serving in the Navy and finishing college, he began working in radio and small TV stations. In Omaha, he hosted The Johnny Carson Show for just $50 a week, but his natural charm stood out. When he moved to Los Angeles in 1951, he worked his way up through small comedy shows until finally, in 1962, he became host of The Tonight Show. Over the next 30 years, Carson became more than a talk show host. He became a national treasure. Yet behind his friendly interviews, he quietly kept notes about the people he met. And some of those memories weren't pleasant at all. Among the stars who shocked Carson, Joan Crawford was unforgettable. Crawford had been one of Hollywood's brightest stars since the 1920s. She was glamorous, bold, and often played strong women who fought through hard times. But her personal life was full of anger and control. She had a difficult marriage with actor Franchot Tone, and stories of violence followed them for years. Later, her daughter Christina wrote the famous book, Mommy Dearest, claiming that her mother had been abusive, cruel, and obsessed with control. When Crawford appeared on the very first episode of The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson in 1962, she seemed charming, kind, and full of energy. But when the cameras turned off, her attitude changed completely. According to people on set, she yelled at staff members, insulted a crew worker over a small mistake, and demanded that they be fired. Carson, known for being calm and composed, was stunned. He later told friends that Crawford's off-camera behavior was one of the worst he had ever seen from a guest. It was a moment that made him realize how different Hollywood stars could be when the spotlight faded. To the public, Joan Crawford was a symbol of elegance, but to those who worked behind the scenes, she could be someone else entirely. A person consumed by her own fame. Another name that left a mark on Johnny Carson was Frank Sinatra. To the world, Sinatra was a legend, the voice that defined a generation. But behind that smooth voice and charming smile was a man known for his temper and connections to dangerous people. Sinatra's early career was filled with struggle and brilliance. He rose to fame in the 1940s, working with Tommy Dorsey's band, but his ambition and anger often got the better of him. Some said he relied on mob connections to get out of his contract. His talent made him a star, but his temper made him feared. Carson experienced that side of Sinatra firsthand. During one taping of The Tonight Show in the 1970s, a Korean War veteran who worked backstage politely told Sinatra he had 3 minutes before going on air. Instead of thanking him, Sinatra grabbed the man by the tie, pulled him close, and threatened him. The crew was terrified. Carson, seeing what happened, was furious. When Sinatra later insulted a female staff member, Carson snapped and told him coldly, "We don't talk about my staff that way here." That was the end for Sinatra on Carson's show. For all his fame, Carson saw a man ruled by ego and rage, someone who thought rules didn't apply to him. It was moments like this that made Carson lose faith in the Hollywood world he had once admired. Jerry Lewis was known for his wild comedy and charity work, especially his telethons for children with muscular dystrophy. But his private life was far from kind. Married to singer Patty Palmer, he had 6 sons, yet most of them later said he was an angry, distant, and unkind father. His oldest son, Gary, even called him a mean and evil person. Lewis was famous for his energy on camera, but behind it, he was explosive. On The Tonight Show, his behavior often made the crew nervous. He was quick to anger, rude to staff, and dismissed anyone who disagreed with him. Even his charity work, meant to help children, became controversial because of the way he spoke about people with disabilities, often describing them as helpless or dying, which many found disrespectful. Disability advocates later protested against him, saying he made them feel small and pitied rather than supported. Carson, who tried to maintain respect and humor with every guest, struggled to handle Lewis's arrogance. It was another reminder that laughter didn't always come from kindness. Sometimes, the people who made the world smile were hiding deep cruelty beneath the surface. Few actresses in Hollywood history were as powerful or fearless as Bette Davis. She was proud, talented, and unwilling to be controlled by studio bosses. Her fights for creative freedom changed Hollywood forever. But her temper was famous too, on and off the set. During the making of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane in 1962, her feud with Joan Crawford became the stuff of legend. The two women despised each other, and the tension was so real that their scenes together often turned dangerous. Davis was also known for her fiery attitude during interviews. When she appeared on The Tonight Show in the late 1980s, she was sharp-tongued and outspoken, openly saying she would never work with certain actresses again. Carson handled her with humor and respect, but it was clear that she was difficult. She often demanded whiskey before interviews and insulted makeup staff. Still, Carson admired her honesty. Unlike others, Davis didn't pretend to be someone else. She was bold, messy, and human. But she also reminded Carson how fame could harden a person. Her life was filled with success and pain, and her defiance against Hollywood power became both her strength and her curse. In her, Carson saw the real price of fame: isolation and constant struggle for respect. For many Americans, Bob Hope was a hero, a man who made soldiers laugh during wartime and hosted the Oscars with charm and humor. He entertained troops in World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and even the Gulf War, always carrying his trademark golf club and quick wit. Presidents awarded him medals, and audiences adored him. But even Hope had secrets. Behind his perfect image was a long affair with actress Marilyn Maxwell, which lasted for years while he was married to Dolores Hope. Their marriage was filled with distance and silence, and his personal choices disappointed those who had seen him as a family man. As he grew older, Bob Hope also became harder to work with. On The Tonight Show, he would ignore schedules, talk endlessly about his projects, and demand his film clips be played longer than planned. Carson respected Hope's legacy but grew frustrated with his attitude. At times, he even had to cut to commercials to save the show from running too long. By the 1980s, Carson had quietly lost patience. The man who once inspired him now seemed lost in his own fame. Hope's use of fake laughter tracks in his later TV specials made things worse, showing how far he had drifted from the real, live entertainer he once was. To Carson, Hope's decline was sad proof that even legends could lose touch with reality. Two other guests who shocked Carson were Zsa Zsa Gabor and Mickey Rooney. ZZ was more famous for her personality than her acting. She married 9 times, lived lavishly, and said whatever she wanted. Her boldness made her a television favorite, but her temper made her unpredictable. In 1989, she was arrested for slapping a police officer after being stopped for driving with an open bottle of alcohol in her Rolls-Royce. When asked about it later, she said she would slap any man who insulted her, even a king. Mickey Rooney, on the other hand, had been one of Hollywood's biggest stars as a teenager. By the time he was 19, he was earning thousands a week, but fame consumed him. He lost his fortune through gambling and bad decisions, and was later accused of mistreating young actresses. Even though Johnny Carson was surrounded by fame every night, he never truly felt like part of the Hollywood crowd. He was always watching, observing how people acted when they thought no one was looking. He once told a close friend that fame doesn't change people. It only shows who they really were all along. That belief came from years of seeing stars behave differently off-camera than they did in public. When the lights went out, many became impatient, selfish, and cruel. It broke his heart because Johnny believed show business could be about joy, creativity, and connecting with audiences. But for many celebrities, it was only about attention and ego. Carson once said that some stars entered the studio as if they owned the place. They demanded special treatment, yelled at assistants, and refused to wait like everyone else. Others were kind and humble. People like Jimmy Stewart, Lucille Ball, and Fred Rogers, who treated everyone with warmth. Johnny used to quietly say those guests reminded him why he loved entertainment in the first place. But the cruel ones? They made him question it all. He saw how fame could twist good people into monsters, and he saw how the industry rewarded arrogance instead of kindness. That realization stayed with him long after he left The Tonight Show. One of the most unforgettable figures of Johnny Carson's era was Marilyn Monroe. Although she never appeared on his version of The Tonight Show, she died before his hosting years. Carson spoke often about her with guests and crew. He admired her beauty and innocence, but also saw her story as a warning. Monroe was a woman loved by the world, but destroyed by the same spotlight that made her famous. In Carson's view, Hollywood used her charm, her laughter, and her body to sell dreams. But when she began struggling mentally, the industry turned its back. He often compared her story to the pressure that every celebrity faces, the endless need to smile, look perfect, and never show weakness. Monroe's life reminded him that fame can be both a blessing and a curse. She wanted love and peace, but the people around her wanted to control her. Even decades after her death, Carson spoke with sadness when guests mentioned her name. He once said in an off-air conversation, "She wasn't evil, but the people who destroyed her were." For Johnny, Marilyn Monroe symbolized the price of being too famous, a life lived for others, until there was nothing left for yourself. Few celebrity couples caused as much chaos as Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton. Their passionate relationship played out in public, full of love, fighting, and constant headlines. They married each other twice, divorced twice, and still couldn't stay away from one another. When Elizabeth Taylor appeared on The Tonight Show, she was stunning and charming, but behind the scenes, her temper was well known. Crew members said she often arrived late and demanded a specific kind of lighting that took hours to perfect. Richard Burton, on the other hand, was known to drink heavily before interviews, which made him unpredictable. Johnny handled both of them professionally, but their behavior reminded him of how Hollywood encouraged drama for publicity. The more they fought, the more magazines sold. He saw that for many stars, real life had become a performance, and they no longer knew who they were when the show ended. Taylor, despite her kindness toward fans, was addicted to attention. Carson once joked privately that some guests were so used to being adored that they forgot how to be human. The Taylor-Burton love story was glamorous but toxic, and it taught Johnny another lesson. Even the most beautiful lives in Hollywood were often built on pain. Johnny Carson was known for being calm and polite, but there were rare moments when even he lost patience. One of the most famous incidents happened in the mid-1970s when a young, rising actor arrived drunk on set. He made rude jokes, insulted the female guests, and kept interrupting Carson. Johnny smiled on camera, but during the break, he stood up, looked the actor in the eye, and said, "You either behave like a professional, or you walk out that door right now." The entire studio fell silent. The actor apologized immediately, and the rest of the show went smoothly. Afterward, the crew said they had never seen Carson so serious. He didn't like conflict, but he also believed in respect. That moment became legendary among the Tonight Show staff, because it showed that even the kindest man had limits. Fame, he believed, never gave anyone the right to humiliate others. Later, Carson quietly banned certain guests who caused trouble, no matter how famous they were. To him, kindness was more important than ratings. He would rather lose a viewer than let a bully win. Despite all the arrogance he saw, Johnny Carson met many stars who earned his admiration. One of them was Jimmy Stewart, the legendary actor known for It's a Wonderful Life. Stewart was gentle, polite, and humble, the exact opposite of many Hollywood personalities. When Stewart appeared on The Tonight Show, Carson treated him with deep respect. During one emotional moment, Stewart read a poem he had written for his dog, Bo, and tears filled Carson's eyes. The audience was silent. That moment showed the real magic of television. Genuine emotion connecting millions of hearts. Other guests who impressed Carson included Lucille Ball, who always treated crew members like friends, and Fred Rogers, who reminded everyone about kindness and compassion. These people, Carson said, were proof that fame didn't have to change you. They stayed grounded, honest, and grateful, even after decades in the spotlight. They reminded him that good people could still succeed in a world full of vanity. Johnny often said privately that real class isn't about how you act when the camera's on. It's how you treat people when no one's watching. Those stars became his quiet heroes. Even though Johnny Carson made millions laugh, he often felt lonely. His humor came from observation, but it also came from a place of distance. He could talk to anyone on screen, but off-screen, he avoided most social events. Many people misunderstood this and called him cold. But in truth, Carson simply didn't trust easily. After years of watching Hollywood destroy friendships, he built emotional